Mass News.
Now at 6, the fallout continues as multiple Massachusetts state troopers are hit with several charges for allegedly accepting bribes from drivers looking to pass their commercial driver's license exams.
Western Mass News reporter Wesley Days is hearing from several organizations tonight on how this affects drivers like you across the state. And Wesley, these troopers received everything from landscaping work to snowblowers.
They sure did. The driveway repayment at one of those troopers' homes could cost nearly 10 grand, Abby and Chris. But allegedly, for Sergeant Gary Cedarquist, the only payment necessary wasn't a debit or credit card, but a passing grade on a CDL exam for a truck driver applicant. Bribes like those have now led up to a pathway to a 74-count indictment.
We have to be diligent about making sure people that receive these licenses are doing so in a way that's inappropriate.
Lawmakers are chiming in as new details emerge about 4 law officers, 2 currently on the force and 2 retirees, charged with taking bribes for passing grades on commercial driver license test, a requirement to hit the road in commercial grade trucks and buses. Some passing drivers may have never even sat behind the wheel for their test, using a covert nickname for the practice. Take a look at the message. One trooper asked, "Did the 1030 pass today?" Another replied, "Yes, sir, he got the golden handshake."
We need to make sure that our state troopers, our law enforcement agencies, they're no different. They live in our communities. They're an extension of our communities.
Western Mass News spoke with State Representative Carlos Gonzalez, the House Chair of the Public Safety Committee. He breaks down how incidents like these highlight more than public safety concerns.
Everybody in providing some type of capacity of public safety needs to live up to the public accountability of that as well.
His colleague in the House agrees. Transportation Committee member Representative Lindsay Sabadosa provided us with a statement saying in part, quote, "It is disheartening that anyone would participate in a scheme to ensure passage of the CDL exam. I hope that any drivers involved will have their licenses suspended given their blatant disregard for ensuring the safety and well-being of other drivers on the road." Blatant disregard, another factor for Representative Gonzalez.
I think there's no difference whether it's heavy machinery or driving an automobile. Having the appropriate license and doing so in the appropriate way is the only way.
We've also heard from Trucking Association of Massachusetts Executive Director Kevin Smalls. He says the trucking industry's main priority is safety. While the situation involving a small number of Massachusetts state troopers administering some examinations is concerning, we believe that the overwhelming majority of CDL drivers operating in our state are operating legitimately and safely.
Those 2 current troopers, Sergeant Gary Cedarquist and Trooper Joe Rogers, were indefinitely suspended without pay this morning by the department. The department was aware of the U.S. Attorney General's investigation since late 2022. And in 2023, after a CDL unit audit, Massachusetts State Police enforced new requirements like requiring use of body-worn cameras for all CDL exams, increased frequency of unannounced visits by unit supervisors to examiners at training sites, and new positions created as well to supervise and coordinate CDL unit training. Now, we'll give you more information when we learn how many of those drivers were actually impacted by this, how many of those drivers received those fake licenses. Reporting live in studio, Wesley Days, Western Mass News.